Welcome to YouTooSpain Live. This week I'll be joined by our very good friend Lucia Melgarejo from Blacktower Financial Management, who will bring you all of the information you need to know about tax forms, Beckham's Law, the financial markets, Spanish wills, and planning ahead financially for your move to Spain and more. Join us with questions and comments on the live chat or in the comments below if you're watching afterwards, because you are a part of this too. You are very welcome to YouTooSpain. Let's have the groovy theme song. Oh yes, that is groovy. And speaking of groovy, let's welcome my expert guest for today. It's Lucia Melgarejo. Hola, Lucia.
Hola, good morning. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. A little damp up here in the hills. Is it like that on the coast as well?
Yes, exactly the same. Doesn't stop raining, but it's well needed. So welcome,
Yeah,
welcome. That's
it
okay.
is. Yeah, and we're going to get a bit of a downpour later on, I think, uh, up here and down there. But yeah, it's good for the reservoirs. We're only at about, I think, 28% or something at the moment on the
Yes,
reservoirs, but it's better than the 10% it was last year. So that is
sure.
good. So
Good.
great to have you with us again. This is our regular quarterly foray into the financial world with you, and it's always a pleasure. So let's have a little quick look at who's on the live chat. There's only Paul Cook said good morning, Scatch and Luthia so
Good morning, Paul.
far. So everybody else, get your waves out and say good morning on the live chat so we know who's on there with us and we can answer your questions as we go along. So while we're waiting for everybody to come on board, let's ask the basic question for people who haven't seen you before. Who is Lucia and what is Blacktower Financial Management?
Sure. So to introduce a bit myself, I'm Lucia Melgarejo. I'm Spanish myself. I grew up in Granada, where I did university, and I started working in Malaga in private banking there for nearly 10 years. And then after that, I decided to move to work with the internationals so I could be able to give a bit more a wide offering of solutions in order to be more tax efficient than with banks here in Spain. I'm qualified by the EPFA Association, which is a European Financial Planning Association. In order to get that, I had to pass an exam that was back in 2009. And every year I need to retake an exam as well in order to keep my license. So that allowed me to be able to provide financial and tax advice here in Spain and the European Union as well. Also, through Blacktower, I got to be a member of the CISI, which is the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment. That's linked to the UK country, and we are registered there, of course. And now, I mentioned that to you before, Scats, that I've been told, well, that was yesterday, that we need to take another exam from the Cyprus regulator in order to keep on doing our job here within the European Union as well. So, and the deadline is July this year. So I'm going to be very busy studying again through the finances and the maths and financial maths and all that work, which is nice as well. In regards to Blacktower, just to let you know that I've been working for them for the past 7 years. Blacktower has been around 39 years and has presence in 20 locations. Nowadays, as we all know, with the stream, with Zoom and Team, that digital world, we can be talking to any client around the world. I have clients that are planning to move that are based in Hong Kong, that are based in the United States, Australia. So that's nice that we are able to communicate with everybody. Um, And we are around 300 people working currently at Blacktower. We do have licenses in UK, the European Union as well, Gibraltar, Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Australia, the UAE, and the United States. So we tend to be able to help anybody that is anywhere, pretty much. My job here, from the financial and tax planning point of view, is just to try to guide everybody that is planning to move to Spain through our complex world here in Spain for taxation. Try to navigate that, try to be able to make it as simple as possible, and to look for any, or help, better to say, with any questions that you may have, because as I said before, I'm Spanish, so I'm well connected on the coast. I've been more than 20 years based in the Costa del Sol, and I do have colleagues that work in other areas of Spain, so very, very happy to help you with anything that I'm able to. In regards to the services, or what we do exactly here, I advise on investments and retirement planning. From the investment point of view, we look for Assurance B, which is the insurance, the Nexus Portfolio Management Limited, and also Trade Desk. We do help with regular savings as well for any purpose, educational regular savings, for example, or for something that you may plan for the future, and also wealth management. So, for instance, somebody that already has a portfolio set up in the home country, we make it compliant with the Spanish tax authorities, and I am help to navigate through any returns that we are aligned to be written at some point in the future. And then from the retirement plan point of view, I help with the international pensions, the SIP, which are self-invested pension plan advice, with QNAPs, which are qualifying non-UK pension schemes, and with QRUPs, which are qualifying regulated overseas pension transfers. So that's roughly, in few points, what I'm able to help you with. And of course, tax planning is key. To have everything in place, not to have the taxman next to us, or having a surprise with a tax bill when we arrive here in Spain.
Absolutely, yes. Let's just say hello to people who've joined us then. Robert Stubbs from Cooking Made Easy. I've still got to look at your site properly, Robert. I'm doing a lot more cooking these days. Chris Hardman, good morning, Lucia and Scats from an unusually sunny UK. So that's
I
where the
know.
sun's gone. Matt David says, beautiful day here in Derbyshire for a change. Lovely. Do you know there are more scattergoods in Derbyshire than anywhere else in the UK? And that's where my name comes from, for those of you who didn't know. And Marie Dye, good morning from the UK, hopefully soon to be in Spain. And Jude Madden has a question from Saxtabulous, presumed to play the saxophone, which is brilliant. And hola a todos, I became a resident in October 24, so less than 183 days in that year as resident. By July this year, we'll be totally fiscally resident in Spain. I presume I will have to make a tax return in 26, correct, for the year 2025.
I will cover that information as well as we go along on questions that we have. Yes, but that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, excellent. So let's move on to the first topic of today's show, which is how to inform the tax office that you live in Spain. Oh, by the way, before we start, if you just move your microphone down a little bit, we're getting the air from your mouth and nose blowing into it.
Yeah,
That's a
much
bit better. Yes, lovely.
Perfect.
It's, although your breathing is proves that you're alive, it's getting in the way of some of the words. So I'll put up this
Right.
picture over here then. That's a very dramatic picture.
So how we inform the tax authorities. So it's not a way to inform the tax authorities. So basically, when we arrive, and that's very good, the question that we had previously. So when we arrived here and we start our living in Spain, pretty much the tax authorities can find out if they wanted to see where you are. So by using a credit card, your bank account, our phones, of course, our phones are the major informative tool that they have in order to get some information. But just to be clear on when do we become tax residents here in Spain, when somebody is liable for taxes. So when you stay more than 183 days, which is half of the year, essentially. A person is considered tax resident in Spain when we are over 183 days within a calendar year. Our tax year goes from January the 1st to the 31st of December, so that's our tax year. And that period also includes sporadic absences, unless it can be proven that the pension has resided in another country, but of course with physical supporting documentation. Then also another way of being or becoming tax resident is that you have the center of your activities or interests here in Spain. That's another condition that was established by law, and if a person has a primary economic activity or interests in Spain, then you will also be considered tax resident. This includes not only your wages from a job that you have, is any activity that involves a direct economic interest. Also, another point where you could be considered being tax resident here in Spain is that your family members are located in Spain. So if you have your spouse and your kids, minor kids, habitually residing here in Spain, that's presumed that you are a tax resident here in Spain as well. So that's important that we all have that in mind. So it's not only the 6 months period that we would be classed as tax residents. It's just if you had your family as well and your nucleus from activity is located in Spain, then you are classed as tax resident. And briefly replying to the question before, for somebody that came in October last year, that's clear that you will become tax resident for 2025 as long as you are here over the 183 days, or your family is located here, or your nucleus of activity is here in Spain.
So, for example, when I became resident, in the second half of the year, I became self-employed. In my case, I became a tax resident straight away because I was paying onto the social. So, yes. So this is especially really due for people on the non-lucrative visa, for example. So
Correct.
it's good to know. Excellent. Anything else they need to know about registering?
For now, and as I said, so it's nowhere that you go and register yourself that you are, I am tax resident here, or I've been living here. As soon as you comply with those rules that I mentioned, those 3 key points, then your obligation, so it's an obligation that you have to file your taxes here. While you are non-resident, then there are other things that you will need to do prior to that. But I'll come on to that on the following questions. I believe that I have something to say here.
Perfect. Just before we continue, everyone who's watching, you may have noticed there's a QR code up here in the corner. And if you've learnt something of value to you today, or you've been entertained, then click on the like button, subscribe, and use that QR code in the corner to help us to help you. If everyone puts the cost of a cup of coffee or 3 into the pot, then the electricity keeps working in this office, and I keep smiling because I'm just pure electricity. So let's just check. And June Madden says thanks for that. John the Joiner, good morning from cloudy Devon. Sorry I'm late. And no note from your mother. There we go. So let's move on to the Modelos, which is the Spanish word for the forms that you need to know about. So let's get just the image of the logo for the tax office so you can recognize this.
So you are familiar with that. So whenever you see an A like that with those three colors, then that's the taxman or the tax madam coming after our income. Right. Here I wanted to touch on a couple of things. So for non-residents and for residents. So when we come to live in Spain and we have been for a shorter period within that calendar year, as you mentioned on the question before, there are certain things that we need to do in case whenever we have a property that we bought. For example, let's say that somebody came last year September, they bought a property, and now what we need to do as non-residents, because we are not qualifying for residents yet, or tax resident better to say, we will need to pay our IBI, which is the local tax for our property, and also the basura. So those two taxes would have to get paid as soon as you come to live in Spain. That's usually sent to yourself once a year. You can either set up a direct debit on your bank account by going onto the town hall and ask and request that. And also something that we will need to do when we are non-residents and own a property is the Modelo 216, which is the non-resident tax. Okay, that's for somebody that came to live in Spain. I repeat myself on that. Bought a property, but it doesn't comply yet for the tax residency period. But of course, we own a property that's classed as our second property because we are non-residents here yet. So therefore, we will need to do a Modelo 216 on that. But by owning a property is what I just covered here. Then for somebody that is already tax resident, so in that particular case for you, it would be for following year when we comply, so that we will be looking at doing the ones that I'm going to mention in 2026. So we need to do, first of all, we have Modelo 720, which is a declaration of foreign assets. That is only an informative document, so it's no tax to pay. It's only a form that we will need to complete by the end of March. So, for example, this current time, for somebody that is already a tax resident, your deadline is the 31st of March if you haven't done so yet during this 2025 year. And there we need to inform the tax authorities of any assets that are located outside of Spain, no matter where, as long as they are outside of Spain. So, for example, they are three classes, three asset classes. So we have bank accounts, all bank accounts combined. If they are over 50,000 euros, they need to be informed. Properties, if we have any property worth over 50,000 euros, that also has to be informed. And any shares, any investments, any pensions that are accessible to you also have to be informed there. We don't need to do that on an annual basis, only if one of the asset classes has varied. So if we have sold our property, for example, we will need to review that again. If within our bank accounts have been a difference in balance for over 20,000 euros, that also have to be redone. But other than that, you do it once, and as long as anything has changed, then that's it. Then, a couple of years ago, the tax authorities implemented a new Modelo close to that 720 that I said, but just related to cryptocurrencies. Somebody that has a cryptocurrency within a platform outside of Spain has to do a Modelo 721. So it's similar to what I mentioned for the 720. That has to be informed there. Those are the two ones that we will need to fill by the end of this month if we are already tax residents here in Spain. Then the next one that we have is Modelo 100. I feel like I'm talking about fashion, but it's Modelo form.
No. That's what happened
Mode-
when I put in Modelo in the search engines. I get loads of pictures of models, which is
I know. So it's nothing to do with fashion.
yeah.
So we have the form number 100, and that's for income annual income tax returns, the normal one that we are used to do back home. I understand. And the deadline for that is the 30th, more or less, 30th or the 2nd of July, but the end of June, usually. Before the end of June is the deadline for when we have to submit that annual tax return. So where we will need to include all our income that come from pensions, that come from any investment income, any rental income that we have from somewhere else. And of course, if we are getting those incomes from abroad and there is a double taxation agreement in place, like the UK or France or anywhere, or we can check if there is a double taxation agreement, but most of developed countries have one in place. So we offset any taxes that we already paid in our home countries, of course. So it's not that we are asking for extra tax on that. It's just that we need to align and to inform any income that we are living off here in Spain. Um, in regards to the annual tax returns as well, we need to include any savings tax, any savings income, sorry, that we get from, as I mentioned, investments, for example. So our rates for capital gains tax go from 19 to 28%, according to how much do we get from as a gain. Okay, it varies and pretty much is what it needs to be covered. Of course, we have reductions, we have deductions. It's a bit more complex than within other countries, so I'm unable to guide you exactly on a general tool or a general rule that we have for deductions and reductions, but clearly I'm able to tell you that if somebody earns less than around 20,000 euros in one calendar year from one single payer, which means, for example, you only get an income from your state pension. So that's only one payer. So then you wouldn't need to fill out your Modelo 100. That's only when it's coming from one single payer. If you have, for example, a pension plan that is paying out to you plus your state pension plus your rental income, then you wouldn't be going under that 20,000 euros annual rule. So therefore, you would have to do your Modelo 100. It's better to check all the time with a tax expert whether you are liable or not for the Modelo 100. Right. After the Modelo 100, which is the annual tax return, we have Modelo 714. That form is for wealth tax. Okay, wealth tax, we need to look at where we are located in order to be able to tell how much we will be liable for. But in general terms, for somebody that has over 2 million euros must file a wealth tax return by the end of June every year. The deadline is exactly the same as the Modelo 100. It's something that they have made as to be simple. So from May till the end of June, we need to do our Modelo 100 and our Modelo 714 if we have a wealth over 2 million euros. If we are classed here, we also have some allowances to consider. Allowances are divided by main residency and other assets that we could have. So for main residency, we have an allowance per person of 300,000 euros. And for any other assets like investments, pensions, is up to 700,000 the allowance from where we consider to be going on to fill in that form. And rates are pretty much from 0.2% up to 2.5%. That's a progressive tax system. So according to how much do we have is when we need to go either for the 0.2, which is the minimum tax, or the 2.5%. Okay. And
Okay.
last but not least is the solidarity tax.
Yes,
That's
comrade.
called that's solidarity. Well, so okay, I'm not gonna make any comment here. Uh,
Yeah.
that's called Modelo Form 718. That also has a deadline, exactly the same one as the Modelo 100 and 714, so wealth tax and annual tax returns. And that form was introduced a couple of years ago by the central government, and it's a temporary one. So it's based on a law that came up in June 23, and that means that anybody that has an amount greater than 3 million euros would have to fill that form, and that's on an annual basis. Okay.
Mhm.
The rates go from 1.7% up to 3.5%, according to the wealth that we have in excess of the 3 million that I mentioned. So briefly to recap, because I know it's a lot of information, but I just wanted to give you some ideas and clarity on that. So the Modelo 720, which is the declaration of foreign assets, is for somebody that is tax resident and has assets outside of Spain worth over 50,000. That has to be submitted before the end of this month. Okay, and also for cryptocurrencies, the 721 is also deadline 31st of March. Then we have the annual tax return, the wealth tax, and the solidarity tax deadline the end of June every year. That's something that has to be done on an annual basis for somebody that is already tax resident. Okay, and any questions, please feel free to ask them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching back afterwards, Lucia's contact details are just under the video description below. So you can get in touch anytime there. Just a quick reminder from Mad David, which is, yes, this is handy for UK people. Just a reminder to check your national insurance contributions before the April deadline. If you're missing any years, this is when the final deadline for this happens. You can top up your contributions to receive full state pension up till that date. So, yes, check with
Yeah,
your
thank you for
financial
that.
advisor and get in touch with that. Yeah, and Anton Cares is saying, Hola todos, late in as all buses were full. Do you have to get a bus to your own house? And congratulations on 10,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. And he says 23 viewing at the moment. I've got 26 up here. 8 thumbs up. So yes, everybody give it a thumbs up so we can have 26 on there if you found everything helpful. And I hope you have. And El Davido, morning to you. It's good to hear there are people like Lucia who knows the tax system, because it beats me. I know it makes my head go all foggy most of the time, but every time I have someone like Lucia on the program, it becomes clearer. It just needs hammering into my poor old head. So there we go. Let's move on to the next one. This is an interesting one. This is not about football. This, although it does mention David Beckham, and it is the Beckham law, Beckham's law. So what is it, and who would benefit from this, Lucia?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that because recently I have had, I have seen an increase on requests to go under that Beckham law. So just briefly, I have some notes here that I will be running through, not to miss anything because it's a bit complicated. So we all can get a clear scenario of whether we could go through that or not. So the Beckham law is officially known as the special expats tax regime. And it serves as an attractive fiscal incentive that is aimed to attract foreign talent to Spain. It allows qualifying expatriates to benefit from preferential tax treatment, taxing them similar to non-residents. When a person is considered to be tax resident in Spain, I already mentioned those 3 key points. So when you are over 183 days, or your main center of activity of interest are in Spain, or the residency of your family members are located in Spain, then is when you are classed as tax resident. But then the requirements to qualify for the Beckham law are as follows. So they have changed recently as well. So I'm gonna give you also, current information, of course, at it stands now. So the applicant must not have been tax resident in Spain for the prior 5 years.
Oh, you're
The
frozen.
applicant must have assigned employment registered with the public employment offices, and this regime does not apply to self-employed individuals. Okay, so that's been made very clear. So you need to be an employee of a Spanish company. Also, that the applicant has to have the main activity in Spain. However, that's something that they introduced recently. Earning income from abroad is possible, provided that it does not exceed over 15% of the total income. So you could be working for your for any Spanish company here in Spain, but then of course to have a second job remotely from any other company outside of Spain. But then that income that you get from that overseas company doesn't have to exceed the 15%. Then for digital nomads, individuals working remotely from Spain or a foreign company can qualify as well. Then the innovative entrepreneurs with an activity can also qualify, providing certain things that we have to go through. There are some restrictions for administrators of a company. Their participation on that company must be below 25% of the total shares. And also the applicant's spouse and children under 25-year-old can also qualify if they relocate with them altogether. So as a family, you can go under this Beckham rule. Right. It's important that the regime must be applied for within the deadlines established by the tax agency, by the Hacienda, after starting working in Spain. So as soon as you start working, that's the time you have 6 months to apply to that, to fall under that law. Then I'm going to go now to the interesting bits. So the tax benefits that we get on that, beneficiaries of that Beckham law only pay taxes on income earned in Spain, just in Spain, with a fixed rate of 24% for an income up to 600,000 euros. Anything that exceeds that amount, that will go to the applicable rate, income tax rate in Spain, which is 47%. Okay, so below 600,000 is a flat rate of 24%. Let me just go to, because I'm looking at my notes together with the law that is in front of me, not to miss anything. Yes, so I have here the duration of that regime. Once we apply and it's approved, the Beckham law regime is applicable for a maximum period of 6 years. So you can enjoy that flat rate of 24% during those 6 years, and then after that you will fall under the normal tax regime that is in Spain, which is the annual income tax, as I mentioned, for the Modelo 100. Okay, that is basically what I'm just looking at the law here and the changes. Yeah, that's pretty much what I can highlight from that regime that is very advantageous to somebody that falls or is able to fall under those requirements that have been set up. So yeah, if there is any questions or any doubts, please feel free to throw it on the.
Yes, El Davido doesn't have a question.
I'm just reading the question.
I wish I had David Beckham's financial problems one day, lol. I don't think he's his centre of finance isn't Spain at the moment. I think he's in America, in LA. Is he still with the LA football team or something like that? So yeah, and so he's probably paying a lot less tax out there. He's probably found a way of of getting around it all. Wouldn't surprise me. Well, not him personally. He'll have a very good accountant, a whole series of them probably. There we go. So, just a quick plug before we go on for some other friends before we continue. I usually mention the currency exchange. Currency rates have been quite good for most of this year and some of last year as well. I've told you all before on this program of the brilliant advantages so many times for the company that I recommend. So all I'm going to say is this: use Smart Currency Exchange, and if you use the link in the comments and the video description below, as well as getting a free account and free advice and your own very lovely personal broker, one of whom is going to be on the show in a couple of weeks' time. Or is it next week? I'll announce that later. And you will, of course, by using that link, be helping YouTooSpain as well at no extra cost to you, which is marvellous. And that on its own is a win-win-win with the cherry on top. Okay, so we did a show about end-of-life planning and provision a few weeks ago, but let's look at Spanish wills from a financial perspective. Let's get the logo up for this one so we can move on to that. There we go. So, yes, go for it, Lucia. Why do I need a Spanish will is the main question.
Exactly. So it's not obligatory or mandatory for somebody that lives in Spain or come to live in Spain or buy a property in Spain. It's nothing that we are obliged to do, but of course it's recommendable whenever we have a property or we have bank accounts or any other assets located in Spain. So that will simplify the succession process, reducing the bureaucracy that we have. I'm saying that quieter.
Yeah.
Bureaucracy. And potential conflicts of interest that we may face. Also with the translations, with the apostille of the documentation. So if we have something written somewhere else in our home country that of course potentially would have a different language on it, then we are adding extra costs on that process, which could be simplified by making a Spanish will. So it's a simplification of the inheritance tax process as well, and the inheritance. Not all the time, whenever somebody dies, we need to look at the location of the assets and the location of where the person was living in. Here in Spain, we have 27 different autonomous communities, and each autonomous community, has a different process, a different taxes that will apply to you. So it's very important that we, whenever we are discussing that with a financial advisor or a tax planner, that we start off where we are located or where we are going to be living, in which region we are looking to live. Of course, we don't know. When we are planning to move over to Spain, we will be looking at areas. But of course, it does make a difference whether you are in Madrid or you are in Canary Islands or you are in Mallorca, in the Balearics. So it's it's good to have that pointed out. So if somebody dies without a Spanish will, your heirs will face more complicated process. This is because inheritance tax law of your country may be in conflict of interest within Spain. So when you have a Spanish will written, resolves the potential of those clashes in between laws and make the transition of any distribution of assets more smoother. When we go to write a will, we make clear which law is going to be on our will. So we can choose. Since 2015, there was an European law that came in place where we could choose our home or our own succession law to be applied to our Spanish will. So for example, a UK expat that comes to live in Spain or just simply bought a property here can elect the UK succession law to be applied to the Spanish will. That's crucial that we have mentioned that within our will. So I will say if you have written a will prior to 2015, please just double check that you have that clause there. So which law is applicable to your will? If not, it would be a matter of just updating that, including that clause here. Also, by having a Spanish will, we are reducing time of the process. We are reducing the cost of that. So, as I mentioned, for any assets that are located in Spain, that having a Spanish will, that speed up the process, the inheritance process, and avoid the need to have it translated, because whenever you go to the notary to make the will, that will be made in your own language and translated into Spanish. So that will simplify all the apostille requirements that might be requested to you upon death, or to your beneficiaries, better to say. Just quickly to tell you about the process of making a Spanish will, it is very simple, I would say, but you have to go to the notary, a notary here in Spain, and in present. So you cannot give a power of attorney for doing that. So you need to visit a notary for the will to be valid, and it might be signed in presence of an Spanish notario, okay, which is the person that give faith of you are identified, and you are capable of giving your wishes. Then you choose your applicable law, whether you prefer, because it's more advantageous, your home country succession law, or you want to follow the Spanish law there. And then as soon as you sign the will, that gets sent to the central registration in Madrid, which is the General Register of Last Wills, and that makes it valid straight away. So after the minute you sign it, that gets communicated to online communicated, of course, to that registration, and that's done. So you are ensuring that your heirs can easily access the document upon your death. Okay, so that would be pretty much the steps and why. So it's clear that better if somebody pass away with having a Spanish will written or not make a huge difference. I've seen, or I have not very pleasant situations with clients that have passed away, and then there was no wills written here in Spain. Yeah, that makes things very, very complicated, for even more for expats with the languages. So it's always something to have in mind. And
Yes.
that will only relate to your Spanish assets. Okay, so any will written in Spain will relate to your assets located in Spain. So I recommend to keep your will up to date in your home country, if you still have assets over there, and one for the Spanish assets. So they are two different ones.
And assets can include money in the bank in the
Exactly. So
UK.
any bank account, any property that you may have, any investment, anything in general. And something that I wanted to mention, because I was just passing that through my notes here, is that recently I joined, I think that was on Wednesday, I joined a conference call with one of our asset managers, and they were mentioning that in the UK during this month there is a National Free Wills Network, where you can write simple UK wills for free, because that's run by charities. So just to let you know that there is that option, and I will send you the link, or I believe I did already, to you, Andrew, so you can put that onto the live chat or afterwards on the YouTube link.
Okay. Yes, I'll find that. Oh, yes, that's on WhatsApp.
I'll do that. Or I can do that right
Yeah, if you
now.
I can't find it on WhatsApp.
Of
Yeah.
course,
So
straight away here. Yeah, because I forgot to send that prior to our live call
there it
today.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put it in the live chat right
Okay, so
now.
that's run by charities in the UK, and they are helping people to write a UK will for free during. They said March, uh, this March, but when I went onto the website, I couldn't see March anywhere. So I mean that I think that is for, yeah, that's something available for any time during the year. But please do check up in case it's just March, so we are on time.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, good morning to Nelly and Russ Cam. And Gary Russon has an interesting question here. Uh, Something wrong with my mouse. There we go. Can I get all of this year's UK tax back if I start residency on the 1st of July 2026?
What do you mean with all this year UK tax back?
I think this is to do with the double tax treaty. I think is maybe under the impression that you get the UK tax back and then you pay the Spanish tax or something like that. I'm not quite sure whether
Yeah,
I've got that
I'm not.
right.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. So if that means that, of course, by April, the tax uh, uh, submission has to be done in the UK, and then here in Spain, if I start residency the 1st of July 26, so that means that you will need to do your first tax returns here in Spain by 28. So June 28 would be your first tax resident annual tax return for Modelo 100, because from what I can see here, so you are here on the 1st of July 26, you won't be resident for 26, you will become tax resident for 27, and therefore the forms would have to be submitted by June 28. That's too far along the lines, I would say.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we might get some different new forms from what I mentioned already. So if you wouldn't want to please clarify or elaborate a bit more your question, I'm able to reply to you if I can.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's more like the 3rd or the 4th of July if you're going to have 183 days. So, yeah, don't
Yeah, well,
assume
I
that
mean,
it's
so
because it's the
July time
first.
means that half of the year. So if you are more than 183 days in Spain in 2026, then everything would be applicable to you tax-wise in 2027, if not 2028.
Exactly, yes.
Hmm.
Good to know. And Barry from Unitex says, morning, Skets and Lucia. Sorry, I'm late. I'm building a downstairs cloakroom.
Oh,
Interesting. Good for you. And thanks very much for the donation now, Barry. That's much appreciated. Okay, let's move on to the general market overview. We're quite late on in the show, so we can move through these fairly quickly, I think. Let's get the first one up on the screen for you, which is, let me see now, that will be number 7. Yes, let's put that bigger on the screen so we can see exactly what that is.
yeah, just wanted to give you a general market overview because, yeah, we have had so far this year, well, since November last year, we have had a bit of volatility in markets and everything that is going on around the world. I don't want to mention or be on any side of any political party or any person. I'm not trying to do anything like that. But of course, it's interesting that we got that graph also from a presentation that I attended with one of our fund managers. So very interestingly, they displayed the times that presidents in the United States, either Democrat or Republican, they've been in power. That's the track record or the performance of the index S&P 500, which is the major index that we have on us. So clearly shows that no matter who is been in power, the index has gone up, of course, with more or less volatility due to any other political issues, any wars, any COVID period, or any inflation period. But in the end, after all, looking at this graph that shows since 1933 till 2023, we can see that in the end everything has gone up smoothly from the S&P 500 point of view. And also, I didn't want you to bore with too many graphs. But if we move on to the next one, it's just not to be concentrate only on the US. That the one that we are going to display in a minute shows a wider or more diversified index, which is the MSCI World Price. This is composed of over 23 developed markets, so that takes a good diversification of how how the performance. Oh,
No, sorry
of
about
how that's
that.
okay. I thought it was my screen. I was like, what's going on?
No, I just had my name covering part of the bottom of it, so I wanted to move that out of the way.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, they we can. I'm just gonna make it a bit bigger on my screen. So that shows for the past 5 years how the index has done in performance. Of course, for somebody that invested back in 2020, which we can see right at the beginning that there is a minimum performance here that was because of the beginning of COVID, and then up to how it is now. So far this year, on the figures that we see right at the top of that in green, is the what is done that index over 1 year. And again,
Yeah.
market overviews, they do have volatility. If we look, well, I looked yesterday because that was sent to you on Thursday. So I look at it yesterday because there was a big volatility in the markets coming from the tariffs that were implemented yesterday, and it was up 11%. So more or less there or thereabout from the figure that I sent to you. So important here is just to be diversified and looking at no matter whether what is happening or things are going to be occurring elsewhere, anywhere around us, but being invested in appropriate sectors and again diversified and on developed markets, that takes us to a good performance in the end. I also wanted to mention, and we don't have a graph for that, I believe, Andrew, about the current interest rates that we have.
Oh yeah.
Yesterday, the day before yesterday, yeah, Thursday was, the European Central Bank reduced the rates again on 25 basic points down to 2.5%. That was decided on Thursday. Um, in general, the reason why central banks are cutting off interest rates is because in the end they have a target of 2% on inflation. Whether that's fair, whether that is uh, something that we are able to get to, or whether they are considering everything that we could be spending our money on in order to tell us whether we are on target or above or below target in related to inflation. That's another discussion. But clear is that currently our inflation rate is around 3%, so they tend to be cutting a bit more. So there would be another cut potentially towards summertime from the European Central Bank point of view. And for the UK, for example, the current rates are 4.5, and current inflation rate is around 3% as well, with the same target, 2%. That's aligned with every central bank. And for the Fed, which is the United States, current rates are 4.33. Okay, so those are the latest rates, and of course that reflects on our deposit rates that we are getting currently, and also for any current fixed term interest that we would be receiving. So what we have seen so far this year is our rotation trade, money coming out of the US market and going onto the European and the UK equities. So that's why we can see some volatility in the markets coming from the S&P 500, for example, and going into the DAX, which is the German index. So it seems likely the Fed will only be cutting if cutting rates if the US economy stumbles drastically. So for now, they are going to be maintaining their rates as they are at 4.33, as I mentioned, because US companies are still performing pretty well. GDP is growth is decent, I would say. Not much unemployment, so that's one of the reasons why they would be following or keeping those standards. I would say that's about the general markets overviews, how
Hmm.
we see that, and of course that information that I'm taking from meetings that we have from with our fund managers and any European central banks or central banks in general that are giving out the prediction and the forecast for rates. So it's important that keeping us diversified help us through navigating into
Hmm.
that volatility all the time.
Great, that's good to know. Gary is just clarifying he's retiring this year, so still paying in the UK, but will be starting residency, and he actually meant January 2026.
All right.
So that makes it clearer anyway. So he'll start paying uh, tax return in 27 for 26, but
Yeah.
you won't get your money returned from what you pay in the UK. It's more like that will be taken into account when you pay your Spanish tax.
Hmm.
There we go. El Davido's given a donation.
That will
Thank you
be
very much.
offset
Offset, yes.
from the tax return. So it's not that we are paying twice.
Brilliant. And thanks, El Davido, for giving me €2 towards my tax bill. That makes it a lot less. Thank you. That's perfect. €2 is fine. It'll buy me a cup of coffee at least, and then I'll be able to see my way through the tax, looking at the forms. So, final topic for today is about planning ahead. So, when do you start needing to plan your move to Spain financially, and how can you help our watchers? Let's bring up one of the graphs for that.
Yeah, here and there are various things that I will be mentioning. Also, Gary, for your because you said that you're planning to move in January 26th. So this time of the year, so during 2025, there are certain things that is advisable to do if you comply with what I'm gonna be saying. So here on that graph, what I wanted to show is the difference in between two investments, no matter whether that's a pension or a platform or an ISA or any account or a private pension. So in the end, those are investments. So here, what we need to look at are the fees that we are paying for fund managers, for the advisors, for the own platform itself. So it makes a huge difference when we are going into very expensive funds, or we are minimizing those costs in order to have better returns. So, for example, on the graph in blue, that clearly has less fees involved within our own investment, and the line in red has a bit less cost effective way of investing, maybe because you want to invest into gold on a certain way. Of course, that will imply some of extra charges, or you want to be on a specific market that will cost you a bit more than if you were invested into a developed market. So those could be the difference. So I would say here the advice would be to have a look at your portfolios, how they are performing, whether the charges could be reduced, and we try to make the most out of any of our clients' portfolios. So if there is anything that we can be reduced, because they are two funds that work exactly the same, they are performing exactly the same, but in the end the charges are far less, then we tend to be making those changes within the platform. Okay.
Hmm.
If we go on to the next one.
Okay. Which is number. Oh, fixed annuities. Is that
Yes,
one? Yeah.
yes, thank you. That clearly shows what is happening with the interest rate world, what the European Central Bank, what the Bank of England has been doing, what the Fed has done. So here we have rates currently that we could get, or we offer to our clients on a fixed term deposits, either 3 years or 5 years. They are guaranteed from the beginning. So you could get either 5% on an sterling investment during 3 years, or 5.25 within a 5-year term investment deposit. The recommendation for those would be that why not to lock such a good rate for my own money for the following either 3 or 5 years when we know that interest rates are to be coming down. They are going to get reduced. I understand that they will slow down the way of or the amount of times that they will be reducing the interest rates. But in the end, what we are doing with those is just to fix those terms now. So we know that for the following 5 years or following 3 years, we are going to have those rates locked for my money. And of course, you get the interest paid to your account if you want. And then at the end of the term, that's getting reviewed. Okay, before we go, and I don't know, yes, before we move on to any other slide, Scats, I'd like to touch on couple of things related to when to start planning the move. So that those are what we advise or how we advise clients that are moving to live in Spain or they are already living in Spain. But the answer to when exactly, as soon as possible. So if we know already that we are going to be moving by January the 26th or October the 25th or any date that you have already in mind, the sooner the better, because we can be taking advantage of certain things that are within our own home country. For example, related to the UK, for somebody that has a private pension, from the age of 55, they are able to take a 25% tax-free lump sum. If you take that lump sum prior to become tax resident here, means that you are going to enjoy your 25% tax-free in the UK and not be liable for any taxes here in Spain. If you do so once you come to living in Spain, you are liable for income tax, full amount, up to 47%. So be careful, please, with the tax-frees anywhere in your home country, because in Spain it's not tax-free. The same happens with having an ISA where you have no capital gains to pay. In the UK, here you do pay capital gains tax. If you have a non-compliant investment here in Spain, you do pay capital gains tax year on year. So again, to repeat myself, the sooner the better. Get proper financial and tax advice so we can structure and time your move and what to do, what steps we need to be doing before we finally move to Spain. Also here in Spain, for example, we have a capital gain tax allowance for people that are over 65 of age. So when we are selling our main residency in Spain, so we already have a property, we come to live in Spain, we are over 65, that becomes our main residency. When we sell that property and buy another property that is going to become our new main residency, we are exempt of capital gains tax only for within the Spanish territory. It's not that we are selling our property back home or in another country. It's just here, but I wanted to mention that. And finally, something that I wanted to mention in regards to pensions. Now we have the access to any pensions in the UK for the age of 55. That's going to be increased to 57 from April 28. So again, the sooner the better. We start planning our move.
Excellent. Well, there's a question from Emma B in the live chat here. It says, hello from a very soggy L'Alfaz del Pi next to Benidorm.
Alfaz del Pi, nice.
And can I do my own Modelo 720 online? Cheers. I mean, you can do any of your Modelos online
Exactly.
on your own, I suppose. Yes, if you're confident.
Exactly, you can.
Yes. And Chris Hardman says, hi, Lucia. How are investments protected, i.e. similar to the FSCS scheme in the UK?
Yes, each individual country has their own protection to the investments that we make. So here in Spain is Banco de España. Then for anything that we do internationally that usually are located in Southern Ireland is the Bank of Ireland. So within the European Union, they have their own protection within investments. Yes.
There we go. That was an easy one. And Christopher Dimes says, glad to be here. Yes, we all are, aren't we? Fabulous. So, anything else about planning you need to say, or any other
I think I
final
had
comments?
covered most of that. Well, I had here on my notes also, because I get questioned that a lot, which bank to go to in Spain.
Uh huh.
I'm not particularly a fan of any bank in general. I used to work for one, as you know, Scats, and my husband works for another one. So here in Spain, and of course, we do need banks in general. So my recommendation here is that you go to the branch that is closest to you, that you get on well with the bank manager, that they understand you as well. And very important to say that you get to know how you are not going to be liable for monthly or quarterly fees. For instance, or what I mean here, by having a regular bank transfer into your Spanish bank account of, maybe I'm just making up figures here, 600 euros monthly, and having a debit card and getting it to use once a month, and have a couple of direct debits on your Spanish bank account, that allows you not to be liable for any fees or charges. They are set up rules within each individual Spanish bank where you just comply with them, and there would be no fees for you to pay. So please get to know which ones are the requirements, follow them, and any bank is exactly the same, I would say. So the
Yeah,
one
yeah,
that you feel more comfortable with, that
yeah.
would be also my
Go and
advice.
speak to the manager. That's what I always say.
Hmm.
And as an example of that, when we first arrived in Spain, before we had all of the residency paperwork, we had to set up a bank account, and it had to be a non-residence bank account because we didn't have the TIE card or my EU card to prove residency. So, but fortunately, the bank manager said, "Okay, we know that you're going to be setting up. We know that you're going to be self-employed. We know that you're going to have a residence bank account. So we won't charge you any non-residence taxes or any fees on your non-residence account." So they're allowed to do that. They do have some control over those kind of fees, the managers
Hmm.
themselves, but they need to set that up within the bank. Yes, good to know. So, any further questions on the live chat, everybody, before we all disappear for today? Let's just put this lovely little sign up on the screen as a big thank you to Lucia and to all of you for joining us. And while we're waiting for those to appear, do you have anything further to let everybody know, Lucia?
Again, I tend to repeat a lot myself, but I've yeah come across some cases that people didn't follow, what I always mention about planning ahead, look into how your life would look like when coming to live in Spain, choose the right place to live. Don't buy before you feel the area where you have been visiting recently. You need to live in the area in order to know that that goes and suits you before spending that amount of money into a property. Is a big decision and it's a big transition. I'm here to help you guiding throughout any situations that you may face on that. But always please look for regulated financial advice, regulated tax advice here in Spain, where I'm based. Here on the Costa del Sol, which is the south of Spain, Andalusia, or Valencia area, or any other areas, there I have seen so many people, financial advice, well, pretending to be financial advisors, that just come, appear, be here a couple of years, and then they go. So we have to be regulated and qualified. They are online registration links where you look for you're able to check that I'm registered within the two associations that I mentioned to you before. So the EPFA and the numbers and the licenses and everything. So please do check everything before you get to know somebody. Don't share ever your access link to anybody. I had that yesterday afternoon with a client, a potential client. he shared with me the link to log in onto his platform. Never do that, please. You never know who is going to be on the other side of the screen or even face to face. So please be as reserved as possible and do your research prior to disclosing your personal information, because in the end is your personal finances. And yeah, you come here for better. And as I said, I've been here. Well, I was born in South America, but living in Spain since I was 14, and on the coast since I was 22, and I'm 45, I can say. So being here 20 odd years, doing exactly the same. I still keep clients from my time working in the bank. So long history. But again, please do check. That's my final tip top.
Excellent. Top tip. Tip top.
Oh, sorry. I
It sounds
pretend
better
to
the other
be
way around.
English, but that was pretending only.
No, that's fine. I can allow you the occasional swap over like that. Would you speak how many? 5, 6 different languages?
5.
5. Yeah, so way more than I do. So yes, that is all that we have time for with Lucia this week. Do click on the like button. I will tell you who the guest is next week. It's not who you might be expecting, because it's not Chris. And but before that, we'll just give Lucia a big virtual kiss and a hug and say goodbye for now. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we will see you again on our usual quarterly meeting in about 3 months' time, if not before.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me on the show, as always, Katz. And
You're
thank
very
you
welcome.
for the people that joined, and for somebody that is going to be watching that afterwards. Then, yeah, please get in touch if you need anything.
Brilliant. Thank you. Everybody give Lucia a wave.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Yes, wasn't that wonderful and helpful? And we've kept it down to just over an hour. So I will be putting in the codes, the time codes, along the bottom of the screen just after the show is finished, and also that link to the charity site for wills that will appear in the comments and the video description for you. So next week's show, normally it would be Chris from Upsticks every 2 weeks, but he has the funeral of that family bereavement, which he was busy with a few weeks ago as well. So that's all happening next week, so he can't be with us. But instead we have, and I think I mentioned this earlier, we have the fabulous Rory from Smart Currency Exchange, and we'll be talking about some specific topic within currency exchange, which I will announce during the week on our Facebook group and the Facebook community. So you can ask questions in advance on those pages, or on or underneath any of the videos, of course. So thank you to all of you for joining us. Let's see if there's any quick messages on the live chat before we go. Lots of people saying thank you. Emma B did have a question. Let's see. I wonder if I could send that to, if you get in touch with Lucia, Emma, because that's a question that she can answer for you personally, and her details are in the video description. Sorry to miss that one out. We didn't get it before the end of the show there. So yes, thanks to all of you for joining us and leaving comments and hitting the like button and supporting us with donations and membership. Don't forget to hover over that GoFundMe, or there's a thing in the little dollar sign down there somewhere that you can donate to. There's also the buymeacoffee.com somewhere as well. That's in the super link, actually, in the video description. You can find that as well. So I will see you very soon, either on the midweek video at 6 o'clock Spanish time, or on, of course, next Saturday morning, 10 o'clock Spanish time. And that is all for this week. Somebody pass around the financial cookies. There's 5.21% more of them this week, because we've been wisely planning our cookie finances. There you go. Financial planning joke there. So peace and love and peas and fluff. And here's one final message from all of the voices in my head here at YouTooSpain.
Wave goodbye, lads.
Here we go.
Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.
One more cosmic dance?
All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.